Welcome to the Blackout Show, presented by the Guillen Grid, a show about the Chicago White Sox baseball, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll debate what's working and what's not on the south side of Chicago. It's old school versus new school baseball. And most importantly, we're keeping all the receipts.
Yo, welcome to the show. I'm Gonzo. With me tonight is Jay, and we're missing Slavko and OJ with us tonight. Partner, it's me and you. Obviously, the White Sox got swept in this Crosstown Classic, and the Cubs took the lead in the all-time record of this display of this series. So I say that.
Hold on. Time out. You haven't seen me in a week.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to ask me, how the fuck am I doing? How's my mental health? You know what I've been going through, all the memes people been dragging. And you're going to open the show with this?
This is where we're at, Justin.
That's not my name. My name's fucking Jay. How about that?
And Jay, you didn't have no alcohol at Wrigley. You were supporting the South Side, but not
Wrigley.
not giving the Ricketts any money.
No. And these Sox fans tried to talk me and bully me into not spending any money in Jerry World. Let me tell you something. I didn't even want no free brochures for Wrigley. No novelty cups, nothing. I didn't want to take home. Shit, if I didn't take that picture, I didn't want you niggas to know I was there.
Yeah, I don't blame you at the end of the day.
Unfun, Gonzo.
And the fact that you don't take one game. Granted, game 2 was a blowout, but game 1 and 3 it was competitive for the most part. Cubs, they take one. They lost one.
Game 2 and 3 were competitive. Game 1 was the blowout.
I thought Burt gave up the blowout. But anywho, and even going back to that Miami series, that the Cubs,
you're
granted. What? How did I miss that then?
Because you're talking about me. You're having lack of sleep, lack of socks.
I am having lack of socks. I'm getting basically what Gonzo has went through this weekend is a bunch of the same. We've seen the same shit.
Here we go.
Series after series this year.
Open up.
Granted, they were playing good baseball in the month of May, but this was the ultimate worst defensive baseball I've seen all year, and it happens. And really the series that we care for the most at the moment, because like I said, Sox were playing 500 baseball entering that series. And you would have never have guessed that they were playing 500 baseball going into that series with what we just watched this weekend.
Well, let's start at the beginning, Gonzo. You would have never guessed the Shane Smith start would have ended up with 13 runs for the offensive to score. He got fucking in, I think it was the second inning, where he had Nico Horner first and second, no out, a full count, and he walked him on a pitch that caught the inner third. It was like a backup slider that got called for a ball, and I knew right then and there what was about to happen, because if you're talent deficient like the Sox, guys like Shane Smith are going to need help getting over. I'm not saying that the umpire obviously should have called it a strike because it caught the plate, but those are the type of things that we're not good enough to overcome in the game of baseball. I before we hit the record button, I was fucking groaning and complaining about game one because of all the runs the Cubs have scored on sacrifice flies and fielders' choices. If you have more than one run scored on you via sacrifice fly or fielder's choices. That's a bad defensive inning, Gonzo. That is terrible. That means you are letting runners linger on the base. You're not trying to get the lead runner. Like you're not playing headsy, good, fundamentally sound baseball. And this whole series was basically that. I mean, let's talk about Palacios and Baldwin in the outfield, Gonzo. I mean, we those are gotta have it plays. Gotta have them, and it's a clank, and you're losing. Like for you as an outfielder to know, I'm talking to Josh Palacios in right field against Brujan yesterday. You know the ball's not leaving the ballpark. Why not make a beeline for the warning track and get behind the baseball as soon as possible? Why are you drifting with the wind? Ball bounces off the warning track. That's two bases, automatic run. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah, no, it's and unfortunately with like what we said prior with Baldwin, you gotta give him reps during the week, and unfortunately it's in the outfield because I mean he's a natural infielder, but because of our outfielder depth being injured, you're playing him out in the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's gonna have to be that way but at least Slater and Tauchman, they're off the IL in Charlotte, so they're
Hawkman.
Talkman, sorry. Thank you for correcting me, but Talkman and Slater are in Charlotte and should be momentarily here. Until we see them, you're going to be seeing Baldwin out in the outfield, and that includes Benintendi being gone, injured still. But
Um,
I
yeah, it's
agree with
gonna
you.
be tough. It's gonna
For
be tough.
the for the most part, like I said, it didn't just happen one time. It was happening all weekend, and that's just something that unfortunately we're going to have to see the rest of the season. Hopefully, there's accountability, and we'll get to that later. But before we move on to more of the conversation of this crosstown, I gotta say, granted, I've already said it. The defensive display was horrific. Didn't help us, especially with like what you said with giving them extra outs. No team's gonna come back from that. Um, I've seen a lot of I don't say officiating, but umpire blunders this weekend.
Here you go with this bullshit.
And it all started. I'm not gonna make excuses, but it's just hard being having that background and watching it unfold in front of you, especially when you have instant replay to back this shit up. Because when it started, we were stealing. I forgot who it was stealing second base. I think he got in there, regardless of the tag. He got in there, but they ruled the obstruction, and I think it was Swanson was obstructing the bag, but they gave the bag to him on the obstruction, and they told counsel that he can't review it because it's unreviewable. But you didn't even have to go there because he was safe. I would rather them call him out and for Venable to review it, the out call, to overturn it, because at the end of the day, the Sox didn't need that to be unreviewable or
Yeah.
for the obstruction. So the fact that the next inning, when we saw that Swanson, LeBron, on, I don't even think, I think even before he threw it, the runner was within a step of the bag, so he was going to have that bag easy. But um, they called it a double play with the obstruction of the runner. So and he was going right into the corner of the bag, and it
Well,
was
not only did the runner make contact with the bag on the slide, when Swanson lost his footing, the runner was past him already. So it was a delayed, reaction to the runner slide. Anyway, I feel like in a situation would it happen right in front of the umpire. It's a sensitive fucking topic. We've seen time and time again people get called out on some tricky shit around that second base bag, and they're using the according to the rules. I mean, I wasn't really surprised. It just sucked that it happened against the Sox because, like I said, we don't really have the guys to come back from that. Like, there were instances where at certain points in isolated situations, the Sox did a good job on PCA. He's gotten his base hits. He's driven in a shit ton of runs this series. But yesterday, for the most part, they'll get PCA out, but it's Kyle Tucker behind. It's Seiya Suzuki behind. Like, we get fucking Madrol on base. It's Joshua Palacios behind. It's fucking Opie behind. Like, that's the difference. And when you're talking about roster construction and projections and timetables, it's hard to gauge when the Sox are going to be good because there's just going to be so much time period of roster debris, a lot of fodder, a lot of just shit to be there. There's no reason, there's no way you could justify Joshua Palacios batting third in a major league lineup. I don't give a fuck if you have the Sunday lineup out there. No, I would rather see Cuero, my draw. You could put Brooks Baldwin there, put Elko there if that's the case. Like, when you're going about it, and that's a non-competitive lineup.
Yeah.
Non-competitive because you're a bad team and you're putting the eighth guy on the depth chart in a productive responsibility. It's malpractice, but it is what it is. It's just me talking as a Sour fan. Don't want to see the boys get swept rivalry weekend, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, it should easily be Maedroth, Vargas, Cuero.
Vargas got a bad second.
You said what?
Vargas got a bad second, Gonzo, because
Maedroth, Vargas,
Mhm.
Cuero, Robert, Vaughn, Elko, and
Robert
fill in
Benintendi.
the rest.
Robert, when we get healthy, Robert Benintendi, Elko, Talkman, maybe Vaughn. But you got to think, if Elko's playing defensive first base, Vaughn ain't good enough to DH. The only spot he would have is that right-handed right field niche. And that's dangerous because Vaughn ain't fleet as foot. His center of gravity is so low, you fear for him going over his shoulder. You put Vaughn in a position to where he's only in the lineup as your right fielder. He's off the roster next year, for sure.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to this Elko talk because that's a whole conversation in itself.
I'm not having no Tim Elko conversation. I would like to see it.
We're about to enter our favorite part. And this is a conversation of our manager. This is Will's Way.
The most important thing is to just set really clear expectations for our group and how we're going to go about our day and the things that we're going to do to build a foundation to be the kind of team we want to be. But it's also about cultivating a winning culture and being passionate about coming to work every day and creating a positive environment where people know that we're going to face some tough times like everyone does across the league, but at the end of the day, we're going to do all the things that we need to do to go out there and compete and play hard, holding each other accountable to things that you've set expectations for. But get ready, because we're going to go out there and play good baseball. It's going to be exciting. We hope to see you out in the field.
All right, so that's our manager. Overall, well, let's just get into it. So we saw his first move of accountability with benching Andrew Vaughn today. And if we were to go back to yesterday's game, It wasn't for that beginning of the game where you had this squabbler, or I should say, really high chopper hit to him. So he's running in on the ball. Can he catch a turnaround, get the out at first? Yeah, but with momentum, he's just going to throw it to the plate and get the runner out at the plate. Unfortunately, the tag wasn't there. Runner scores. So you know what, that one I saw him getting a lot of shit for that, but I'm like, you know what? It's just a baseball play. You either make it or you don't. But for me, it was, obviously what we saw later in the game where I forgot what the count was, but he struck out in the pitch inside, ball gets away from the catcher. Yeah, okay, so you might have missed the ball getting away, but as soon as you recognize that ball is away, which he did when he turned his head and saw it, he kept with a jog down the baseline, wasn't busting his ass. So yeah, you don't want to see that as your vet. So you got to hold accountability. And that's what Will Venable did. Held him accountable, benched him. And because of that benching today, well, you saw Tim hitting kind of a similar chopper right to shortstop, a high chopper. And because of that arc to it, he able to beat the double play, but he was busting his ass down the line because he recognized the accountability that Venable had for this clubhouse. And essentially, that's what you want to see. You want to see some hustle out a part of this young club. And this is a culture that Will Venable is still building and is going to continue to build for the next several years that he's going to be here. But that all starts this season. And we saw Pedro Grafal with his accountability shot with Robert last year. And now we're seeing it with Venable, him holding a vet accountable, and that is Andrew Vaughn. What do you think here, partner?
I was 100% with the benching of Andrew Vaughn, and I'm gonna tell you why. Number one, you're stinking up the joint. Number two, you are a first round pick that is playing for a bad team. You have an opportunity for a second chance of life, whether it's with the White Sox or otherwise. If there's stories and evidence of you not busting your ass right now, you're dogging it. When it comes to get that secondary contract and shit, people are gonna look at you sideways. Um, in totality, Gonzo, let's just be honest, Opie has been underwhelming a little bit, and the organization did a great job with calling up Elko and saying, hey, we've literally watched this guy go literally come from out of the mud and mold himself into a big league player at your position. He's doing the hard work we would have expected from our first round pick. So we're gonna put him on the depth chart just to light the fire under your ass, and you have the audacity in the Crosstown Cup to in front of the entirety of the city, entirety of your fan base, your organization, to a game that we actually uh, think is important. The Cubs and Sox rivalry is very important to me. It's important to Gonzo, everybody else, because we need to win these games. You're half-assing it when you have an opportunity to get to first base with an out. We just watched the Cubs score like 6 runs with fielder's choices, sack flies. That's hustle. Like, what if Vaughn gets on base, 2-run bomb right after him? That gives your team a shot in the arm. Like, you're a fringe roster guy right now, in my opinion. I don't know if anybody feels any other way. You're a fringe roster guy, and you got an opportunity to fight for your life. Baseball don't give guys like that many opportunities to do that. And I just felt like Will Venable, him being, a professional guy, fourth outfielder, had to fill in for a lot of guys, had to sometimes play when he was getting, overexposure, still had to put the fucking hard hat on. I loved Will Venable for them Padre teams, but Opie got to figure out his role, because at the end of the day, If you're getting benched like you're Luis Robert and you don't have Luis Robert talent, that can have a cataclysmic effect on the next half of your career. Because shit, you see what happened to Yeremy Mercedes, Yasiel Puig, like out of baseball, Pablo Sandoval, Yoenis Cespedes, like another guy, Gonzo, that's gonna find his way out of baseball pretty soon if he don't get his act together. Jared Kelenic.
You said Jared who?
Jared Kelenic for the Braves.
Kalanick, yeah.
Yeah, him and Opie in the same boat, but except the Braves could send Kelenic down.
Yeah. So this is what I'm gonna say. I'm kind of caught in the middle here.
Because you're a fanboy.
No, it's just because I pay attention to the stat lines here. And again, I'm just gonna say this, right? Andrew, and I've been posting this on Twitter. I haven't been on the last show, so I didn't get to talk about anything of this prior. But Vaughn was essentially tendered for the reason of raising his value because of his career splits, right? Obviously, if you've been paying attention to Twitter, I've been posting it, but his
Really?
worst his worst month of baseball is April. And that's the career splits to even show you that. It's not just him, it's Robert, a bunch of others. But he had his all-time worst this season, right? But you see that May and June, it's a complete 360. Those are his best months of his career splits. So more than likely he was tendered because of that trade deadline in July, at the end of July. You're going to see what you can get for him if you were able to raise his. So think of this essentially with Chris Getz bringing Ryan Fuller in, not only to get the most out of these vets that are still on the roster like Robert and Vaughn, but for the next core of players that you're going to be bringing in to develop not only the minors but the major league level itself. So you're going to see what Ryan Fuller can do with, and again, they already sent him to AAA to work on Colson Montgomery, and we've all seen where that happened. He went to the Arizona complex, and now he's back in Charlotte hitting the ball with X velocities that he's been having lately. Yeah, Fuller's going to be back in Chicago doing the same thing with Robert and Vaughn here momentarily. But with the ceiling of that potential from Hahn drafting Vaughn at number 3, you're going to see, and again, if you look at his season in 2022 and 2023, those numbers, you're looking to see if you can get, if you believe in Fuller as offensive coordinator, you're going to see if you can get better value than numbers he put up in 22 and 23. And you're taking a shot at it, and you're going to try to do it in the month of May and June. So essentially, at the end of the day, you're going to be giving him these reps to see what he can do.
You know how fucking hot he has to get?
And that's what I'm getting to, because so from the first week of, or as soon as the month overturned from May up until it was literally the day before Elko was promoted to the majors, Vaughn was batting 296, which was second. It was right. He was right behind Vargas in those 2 weeks. So you see him having those stats, and then you continue that in the Miami series, but then that collapse here and with the Cubs series. Obviously, you don't want to see it. You want him to continue that, but the fact that he was batting in those 2 weeks, he did. And with that 296, you saw that his average went up 30 points to the 180s. And right now, both him and Robert sit at 184. But in 2 weeks span, he rose at 30 points. So you're kind of hoping that within the next month of baseball that he keeps on raising those 30 points up to hopefully where Vargas is now. So, and Vargas started hitting the ball a week before him, last week of April. And that was right after that Minnesota series. So, so ultimately, it's like I agree and disagree with you, right? Because I say that you should continue to give him reps to prove that value. But at the end of the day, where I do agree with you on it is when that trade deadline comes, and let's just say get what you want from you don't get the value that you potentially saw when you tendered him. you're going to have to come to that decision at the end of the
Gonzo,
year
it's
where you're going to non-tender him this time because you're saying, hey, this is it. We're either going to, depending on how Elko goes, because we'll get to Elko in a second, because I'm going to break some hearts when we get to Elko in a second here. However, Elko is literally it for the moment. You're probably going to have to draft a corner player, third base, first base, in the first or second round here, because it's pretty dim at that position going forward. But look, even if you get the potential, the numbers better than 22 and 23 out of him, you'll get something for it, but it's not going to be
you're going to be
what you're
pissed off
hoping for.
how you were mad for the Fetty trade.
Yeah, and it's looking that way for Robert too. So unfortunately, and we'll get to that here shortly, you might have to package a Shane Smith, or let's just say Miguel Vargas goes on a roll that he continues going on right now. He carries that to July. You might have to carry, or package two moves here of both Robert and Vaughn. You split the Shane and Vargas and you package them separately, but together. Try to get two deals to get some really good value and bring some filling out this next core.
I'm not trading Smith or Vargas.
So that's where I wrap up that conversation on Andrew Vaughn. And that brings me to Tim Elko. Real quick here, I want to look at the chat before I go to Tim Elko because I saw Ralph had this question. Ralph said, "What up? Elko looking great, as we all knew he would. Do time for Braden to come up now and put some pressure on Luis Robert Jr. As they did to Vaughn."
Hecky no.
So Ralph, that's a loaded statement you got there. We're going to take that piece by piece. But at the end of the day, they really didn't pressure Vaughn right away. They pressured him this season, which is years later down the road. They're not going to do that with Braden Montgomery right away, just because Braden is in high A right now. He still needs that development in double A, and he's going to spend a lot of development in double A probably the rest of the season. And then maybe next year you see if he can break camp with the Sox, or if he's just going to be started in Charlotte and then, work his way probably beginning of May, like what happened this year with Cuero, with the control side of it. But at the end of the day, that's where Braden is. But don't get me wrong, Braden is I posted this on Twitter too. He's my number one right now in that farm system. But that is definitely a guy that both you and IJ are looking forward to, the time when he makes his debut. But it's still a little ways off here. But I want to concentrate here, Ralph, on what you said, that first sentence. Elko looking great. So, yeah. Before I break some of the stats, Jay, I want you to let me know what your thoughts have been as you've seen from Elko's 18 play appearances so far.
He's been exactly what I expected. Exactly. If you look at the numbers, the OPS is inflated because it's hard for the man to hit singles. Let's just be honest. It's hard for Tim Elko to keep the baseball in front of somebody when he makes contact. Now, the swing and miss going to be there, but at the end of the day, I've been pleasantly surprised at what he's been able to do in a short amount of time. The swing he put on for the 3-run shot at the rate, he had to wait back a little bit, Gonzo, because a lot of young hitters will be out in front and they'll just break their bat and hit a little blooper. He waited back and got some extension and still pulled the ball with authority on the outer third of breaking ball. And then he came to Wrigley and muscled up to that right center field gap. So, I mean, all in all, I've been impressed with Tim Elko, and I want to see more. I don't need to see more. I want to see more.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on wanting to see more, because All right, so I'm just going to put this straight. I'm kind of the guy out there against the norm. I didn't want to see, it's not that I didn't want to see Elko up, period. I needed for him, I was projecting he was going to come up in June because, yeah, we saw a month of baseball with that crazy slash line he put, but there's still flaws in his game. Again, we mentioned the K rate being a huge issue. The reason why it's a huge issue is because, look, when we see him get to the MLB level, we know he's going to have adjustments to make, but we also know that at some point he's going to start missing bats. But if we saw a high K percentage in the minors, then when we know that he's going to start missing bats, he's not going to be getting on base because he didn't show that walk rate. He was just starting to increase it this season in the minors. But when you're missing bats and not getting on base, you're going to be sitting on the bench at the end of the day. And that's where I was. Look, at the end of the day, we're looking at development here, and I don't want to put a guy on the wrong foot right off the bat if he didn't show that he can get on base in the minors at a higher rate than what he was going at. And I wanted him at least focus on that, give him all the at bats in Charlotte to prove that he can do that. At least prove that part of his game where he's showing that discipline at the plate, not chasing and taking, being disciplined, taking pitches, because that's not what we were seeing. So I wanted him to at least show that. So by June, if he's able to prove that, you can at least say, hey, at the end of the day, he was proving that mindset. So at least at the next level, we can see that part of his game. And we just didn't see that. So now we take a look at the stats here, because again, small sample size, but in 18 at bats, we knew the pop was going to be there, right? He already took 2 home runs in 18 at bats. However, there's only a 5.6% walk rate and a 33.3 K rate already. Back in the minors, he was able to lower that to 28. So it's already spiked up to 33.
But small sample size, that means it's only 6 Ks so far.
So far. Yes. We're talking small sample size, but at the end of the day, look at that perspective. We're looking at this big picture. He's still not disciplined at the plate.
Okay, let me ask you.
So, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Again, small sample size, but we're looking at the basics here. The thing that's going for him is that slug, which, again, like I said, we knew that was going to be there. But to this point, Ks are coming in. He's chasing pitches, not taking them. Again, we saw a couple times with runners in scoring position, him strike out in the last 2 games, chasing pitches, right? So, unfortunately, it's like I kind of foresaw this coming, but I was hoping that they weren't going to rush it because of the fan base wanting it from the stats he's putting up in the minors. By all means, I mean, he still needs to get his at-bats, right? I'm not saying keep him on the bench in Chicago, because all along I've been the one complaining about bringing the rookies up and sitting them the whole time. But at least they're giving him the shot at actually playing him. And I'm hoping that they can find a way to get him on to the field, because right now, all those infielders on the active roster are fighting for at-bats no matter where they're getting them. And unfortunately, this is how it was going to be until the trade deadline, when they start moving some people and freeing up more playing time for others.
Be like this for a minute.
Yeah, but go ahead, Jake. You were about to cut you
No,
off.
I was going to say, I mean, the organization knew the K was going to be a part of Elko's game.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to talk about the sample size? Let's look at the size of his success. So we're looking at a guy right now that's going to strike out 30% of the time, but his hard hit rate, once he reins in the strike zone, because that's all he's doing, Gonzo. He's fishing out the strike zone. He's trying to figure out what pitchers are doing to him. I don't think Tim Elko has gotten enough major league data to improve on his K rate, because if you look at young right-handed power hitters, sometimes it takes them a while to start chipping away at the K rate. start chipping away at the K rate. And I think there's some sort of it's like left-handed power hitters, they could strike out as much as they want and nobody says shit. Right-handed power hitters, if they strike out a shit ton, then it's a problem. If Tim Elko put up these numbers as a left-handed power bat at his age, nobody says anything. Nobody says anything. They'll say the kid has promise. The ceiling is high. The K's are a little bit, but we'll do. Like Tim Elko in 18 at bats has been better than Oscar Colas.
Yeah.
Has given us more than Blake Rutherford, Steele Walker. Like I can go forward. I need to see 100 more at bats at Elko, 200 more at bats at Elko, because I feel like he's put himself in a position to now I could start accumulating data on him, major league data. And the 30% strikeout rate that you brought up, the 5% K, the walk rate, that's fine, because the only way this White Sox team gets better is with better volume of contact, better, more valuable contact, I should say. Because if, like I said, I'll beat this like a dead horse. It irked me that the Cubs scored a lot of runs on fielder's choice and sacrifice flies. The White Sox can help themselves out by getting into that element of the game. So even if Tim Elko doesn't have 101 mile per hour, double into the gap, he can hit a 95 mile per hour sacrifice fly. I'm looking at him like I made jokes about it in the group chat, like, oh, he's just another Matt Davidson. We've seen this before. But at the end of the day, he still has an opportunity to exceed any projections or comp put on him. He's already a hard worker. He's going to evolve and get better with every at-bat he takes. I mean, we could be on the precipice of an Elko Walkow lineup in 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, so how at the moment, I mean, you said it great, but at the moment, he's going to have to make these adjustments at a further faster rate that he's ever experienced. No, but look, it took him, 3-4 years just to get to this point in the minors.
How old is he? 25, 24?
Yeah, he's 25, but he took you at least 2-3 seasons already down there. So the fact that he took so much time to get to this point, that when you give him a promotion, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but this whole fan base is giving them expectations higher than like any other prospect we've had, and it's just unfair to him. But he's gonna have to make these adjustments at
you think it's
process them at a quicker rate, huh?
You think that they put the expectations on Elko because Opie been so bad?
No, I think they just have these expectations because they saw him put that ridiculous slash line last month, and thinking that he's going to be this gem in the rough, guy that is going to come and tear up the league. Like, it's
if Opie was batting 280 with 10 home runs right now, I don't think the fan base would care about what Elko's doing.
I don't know, because you still have that fan. There's sort of part of that fan base that has that agenda against Opie no matter what.
I mean, but still, we had the fan base who believe Mika Rodolfo was a major league player. It happens. Like, there's gonna be that a few good men. There's gonna be a few people out there that's gonna be obtuse, and I mean, they got a right to speak too. But at the end of the day, Elko is a feel-good story for the fan base, and at a certain point, the fairy tale can become a reality if Tim Elko wants it.
Sure, but I mean, I've got Elko and Vargas similar in the same boat, and I'm going to get to that shortly. But Joe posed this question that leads us right to the next topic, and it says, "Does this look like a rebuild? Because it looks like tanking for the sake of tanking." And Joe, unfortunately, this has been a rebuild since they traded Cease away. So you're at that point where you're not going to get out of this rebuild until you've traded all the assets that were left from the previous GM. So you're down to Robert and Vaughn. Until those two players are off the board, that's when you get out of that rebuild stage and straight to development. So, and look, as far as tanking for the sake of tanking, I mean, look, that's regardless, because at this point, you're not a contending. You didn't come to the season, believing that you're contenders, and that's a part of the rebuilding. Is unfortunately you don't have the talent to truly affect not winning games. Like it's you're getting to a point where you're playing baseball to be competitive, but at the same point, like it's just naturally going to take you to being a part of the top 10 of the draft lottery.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is at this point. But that also leads us to the discussion of Vargas and Shane Smith. I blew up Twitter talking about trading Shane Smith because of the value of after he's done with this season. If it's us or whoever he's traded to, they get 5 years of control. And he's already, I don't think people understand, he's 25 years old right now. But let's just think about those 5 years of control. He's going to be on a non-competitive team for at least the next 3 years. Because guys, we haven't even set a core yet, but by the time we've actually truly, not say us, but on Getz's board, his whiteboard, right? He actually solidify who that core is going to be. It's going to take and this is not only just trade assets. This is the next 2 drafts. At the end of the day, once he comes up with that picture from the next 2 drafts, it's going to take the next 2 seasons just to get them through the minors. And it's probably going to take another year to 2 to develop them at the major league level. So you're looking at least 3 to 4 years down the road. And that's where we're at, is you're putting Shane in a position where he's going to be 28 by the time where you can maybe think of contention, but likely he's going to be 30 at the end of those 5 years. And then you're going to have to pay him when he's in his 30s and extension. So it's truly not worth this, keeping him for the sake of keeping him because of the value right now. When really you can get out, nice value to trade him. And that actually brings us to the conversation of Miguel Vargas. Vargas was a top international prospect in 2019, I believe it was, when the Dodgers signed him. And he missed the COVID season because of the minor league systems were not playing during COVID. So he was rushed up through AAA in 2021, and they brought him and put him in left field, first base, and DH that season.
Second base too.
Eventually, he would play second and third base in 2022, but he started at left field and first and DH, and his defensive liability showed in left field and then ultimately at first base as well. He wasn't hitting. He was seen as defensive liability. So going into 2022, they tried moving him to third and second, and that continued to show his liability there as well. And he still wasn't hitting, and he just fell out of the prospect ranks, if you will. But it's kind of similar to, let's just say, where Vaughn is, where he was once a high prospect, drafted third overall. They weren't going to put him in the minors because there was no minor league ball. So they put him in right field, played him out of position because we were in a contentive window. And that just ultimately was the start to his failure of development under Hahn's era. But unlike, Vaughn stayed here this whole time. Vargas finally got to go to a new organization to try to get the most out of that, whatever development they can. And ultimately, what we're seeing is a career best at the moment, and the sample size that we have of, where are we at now? 43 games, 176 plate appearances by Miguel Vargas. He's got a 9% walk rate, only 17% K rate. Slash numbers is 245 average, 328 OBP, 420 slug. But again, this is his ultimate career rate, career highs altogether. But the career average is, at 180 average with the 280 OBP, 330 slug. So ultimately, right, they worked on his shorting up the stance, making those adjustments, and he's playing out of his mind right now. We're going to have to see how those next 70 at-bats go. And he's going to have to make more adjustments as he goes here. But again, he's same as Elko. He's naturally going to have to make these adjustments quick and process it quick and, try to have success off of it. But I fear, again, regardless across the board, there's always going to be a rate of regression to the mean. But it's at what's the standard of that bar of what the basic line for him? Where's that going to settle at? Because we've seen so much failure and not a really true high. He hasn't really shown that he can make those adjustments quickly and process them quickly. So I just fear that however long he takes this, ultimately I'm on that standard of try at least have those conversations of having them in these trade talks to see what the value is. And if it's higher than you set the bar yourself, I say you got to pull that trigger and get what you can. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have so many different utility guys coming through the ranks right now that you're always going to have guys, you're going to have value at your utility position, like a Chase Mydroth. So I'm at like that position where you just take what you can if the opportunity presents itself. And that's with Vaughn, that's with Vargas, that's with Shane Smith, that's with Robert, because you got to get what you can at this part. Because unfortunately, I love the Crochet deal, but that Cease deal, that was his first deal. Again, this is what started the rebuild. In my eyes, you've epically failed that, and it put you a little bit longer into this rebuild because you didn't start on the ground running with it. Because out of your best potential was a change-up starter that really is a middle back end of rotation guy for a top 5 talent in the NL. Ridiculous at the end of the day how that deal landed, but yeah, Getz did land on his feet in that second deal with Crochet, which is nice because that at least gives you a guy like Brandon Montgomery to start that core. But you need more of those position players, and you didn't get a position player in that Cease deal with that high ceiling. So you got to try to catch up on that, and this is going to be lengthy. And I hate saying it because it's even hard for me to have patience because us being Sox fans, we're seeing this season after season of 100+ losses, and I'm barely having struggles with that patience, and I see a lot of people are already, off the deep end on that, and I don't blame them. Jay, what do you have to say about my rant there?
Well, at the end of the day, Miguel Vargas is the best right-handed hitter in the lineup. Shane Smith is the best pitcher in the rotation. They're both on a bargain. You're rebuilding. You got time to incubate them. I don't think you need to move off. Just you're not going to trade them for major league ready talent. So you're already in the process of moving Robert and Vaughn. Who's going to be left? How can you look your team in the face and say we're putting up a fight when you just dismantled an already decimated roster as it is? That's my only thing, because you got to start building a competitive balance in-house from somewhere. It has to start with any group of men. Like you said it earlier, Gonzo, we don't have a core. So what will be the point of just stripping this down to nothing if you don't have a competitive you don't have a competitive brand of baseball to build up on? All these new guys that you're going to bring up from the minors is just going to be brought into a wave of losing. So I just don't want to trade away any players that are good and turn the team into non-com.
That's just the part of rebuilds, though. Is you have to, not only do you have to do it, but you have to have patience with it. You can't rush it for the sake of, for your feelings on, being competitive. And the nice part about this, though, is you're seeing in Birmingham that young core. Most of them were pitchers, but there's a couple of position players in there, like get Jacob Gonzalez, etc. But you're seeing that winning baseball. You're seeing them win championships down in the minors. We haven't seen that before, so that culture is being set in place in the minors. Hopefully, by the time those guys come up, there's going to be some position players ready to go. I mean, we were hoping Colson would have been, up by now, but that just isn't the situation, and that's unfortunate because that's a guy a lot of people thought would be our starting shortstop, and that's just not the case. So you're going to have to find, if that isn't a trade or draft selection, you're going to have to fill that need at shortstop. There's a couple positions where that's probably that should be priority, but you at least at the moment have that at catcher. Cuero's looking the part. Where's Kyle Teal going to play? Where is he going to finalize himself at? That's another guy at Charlotte that's going to be coming up here later in the year probably. So you're going to have a couple position players, but again, it's just filling out that core of position players. And we're a little bit behind on that, but not entirely. And we're going to get into that more in the month of June because we're going to bring on Elijah. We're going to bring up some other people that have more focus on the minors and truly, not only with us, but with their expertise, go into that. I mean, I love pitching, Jay, but there are some position players that are sneakily coming into the system that are showcasing themselves, like a Caleb Bonham, like a Urel Perez, and a William Bagola. There's a couple of guys that you're seeing that are going to be probably battling for short, third base, or just be joining Chase Mydroth.
You just said the word battle. Battle.
Yeah. But that wraps up our conversation of what's to come, and we talked a little bit of
trading my boys Vargas and Smith. No way.
We just had our conversation of Vargas and Smith, and that's where I'm going to leave it at for now because there's still a lot
now and forever.
But Jay, we're going to get to the part of the show where we talk about the upcoming week, and the White Sox are at home Monday through Wednesday versus the Seattle Mariners. Looks like Monday's matchup is Luis Castillo versus Davis Martin. Tuesday's matchup has been undecided for Seattle, but looks
their
like
rotation is decimated right now.
Looks like Brian Wilson will be joining the show for that Tuesday start, and then Wednesday's rubber match will be Logan Evans versus Shane Smith. Ultimately, bro, for me, I'm looking at that Wednesday series because I like that matchup with Shane Smith and Logan Evans. I've liked what I've seen in a small sample size, but those 21 innings that Logan's been throwing, he's been throwing the ball really well, mixing it up. You agree on that rubber match for Wednesday?
We got to be careful because, like, Seattle got Matt Brash back. That bullpen's going to be lethal. You could very well see Andres Munoz for all 3 games. When you look at Davis, I like the first game, the first matchup, Castillo versus Martin, because you're going to watch 2 of the best changeups in the American League. 2 of some of the best changeups in the American League. I know everybody talks about Shane Smith's changeup, but Davis Martin got a good one too. Castillo has a good one too. Offensively for the Mariners, Gonzo, it's only 2 guys I'm really worried about. Randy, because he has a 390 on base this year. He's an on-base merchant. And Cal Raleigh, who is the best Cal Raleigh is the best offensive catcher in baseball right now. He's the most dangerous catcher at the plate right now. And he's the type of guy that could absolutely ruin a ball game for you. Ask Jordan Leisure. I don't see the White Sox winning the game. That's the first time this year I've said that.
Definitely not that second game with Brian Wilson on the bump. That's looking rough. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Seattle's going to take that series in a sweep. Seattle's hot right now. So they might have hiccups in the rotation, but they're a naturally pitcher inclined team to get through it. Because they can bring up guys like Logan Evans, and there's a couple others and their minors that are going up and can even be better than what they have right now with guys like Brian Wu and Bryce Miller. Logan Gilbert's on a whole nother level, but yeah, it's a good pitching rotation they have in Seattle, and they're still looking for hitters. But Cal Riley is, I think, tied league for homers, but he's up there, and he's a guy that they just extended. Yeah, he's a guy that they just extended. So Seattle is coming into town. Follow that up with the weekend series at home versus the Texas Rangers. Looks like it's going to be Friday through Sunday like normal, and it's looking like Malley and Sean Burke on Friday. Saturday's potential is Jack Leiter and Cannon, and Sunday's matchup is looking like it's going to be Patrick Corbin versus Davis Martin. That might be your best start or the best potential of that series to get a victory.
Patrick
Sunday.
Corbin been throwing the ball pretty well this year, Gonzo.
That is true. But like I said, I think that's your best shot. I'm interested in that Saturday matchup with Leiter and Cannon. I like how Jack's been throwing the ball this year. But ultimately, I got Texas taking that series. What about you? What do you see? Any particular matchup there you're interested in?
Doomed again. We're going to get cream pied. We're going to get destroyed. Wyatt Langford. Evan Carter's back. He's going to slowly. This is one of the series that he has circled on his return because these are the at-bats that gets him back on track. I just feel like looking at the White Sox team right now, Gonzo, and how we have the segments for the schedule, I just want to get back to where I can say the White Sox are going to win this game or that game. I feel like Jack Leiter is probably our best shot at winning the game because he has a shit ton of base runners every start. I mean, we could get lucky with that, but Patrick Corbin, he's been keeping everything inside the lines this year. Tyler Mahle as well. Both guys having resurgent years, so maybe we got to pick on the youngsters Saturday.
Yeah. That wraps up our look out for the week ahead, and now we're going to get to some picks to click. OJ won last week with his pick of Lenyn Sosa. For this week with Sosa off the board, he is going with Miguel Vargas.
Wow.
And with Vargas off the board, the picks is going to go OJ, you, Slavko, then me. So Jay, Sosa, and Vargas are off the board.
Oh, boy. This is going to be tough. Absolutely not. Give me Cuero. I feel like my dynasty catcher is going to get me off the mat, get me on the board.
Cuero. It's a good pick. Since you took Cuero, Slavko wanted Mydroth.
So you got Joshua Palacios. You got Matt Tice.
I've got... You know who hits the ball good versus Seattle? I want to go with Luis Robert because he is in due to have himself a series. I'm feeling good about that, Jay.
Yeah.
Let me post this for the chat. But my picks, or our picks, is OJ is going with Vargas. Jay, you're going with Cuero. Slavko with Maedroth. And I'm going with Robert. The all-time series this season is OJ has 2 victories. I've got 1. And you and Slavko are fighting to land on the board. So that is where we are currently at with picks to click. Jay, start us off with some shout outs, bro.
Well, I got to give a shout out to the Blackout Show. I love coming on here talking White Sox. I know it's been doom and gloom the last couple of years, but there's nothing I would rather do. So shout out to. What the fuck is this? But I wish I would have. What the fuck, man? I love you guys, and I love talking Sox, and it's been hard because like I'm so used to having favorite players, being a homer for the team. It's like right now I don't even have a favorite player, and yet I'm still getting geared up to do overnight shows with just Gonzo, the conspiracy theorist. So shout out to you guys for keeping me in tune and locked in with the Sox. Shout out to Bad Guy Radio, Ray's Juke Joint. You guys giving me a good habitat, good sports environment to keep me sane, so I don't got to pay all that money for therapy. I can just get on social media and the internet. But, at the end of the day, Gonzo, I'm just blessed to be a White Sox fan. Thank God I don't root for a terrorist organization like the Chicago Cubs.
Beautiful, beautiful, Jay. I'm going to shout out Joe in the chat with the couple questions and sentiments that he had. I'm also going to shout out Ralph Daniels. He's always in our chat. And really quickly, I want to get back to what Ralph said because he brought up the draft last year. Where is it? Yeah. They should have picked Jack instead of Hagen. I mean, yet to be seen. Look, the main thing with Jack, which was crazy because it was the K rate. A lot of people are bringing it up in college, but he's tearing up the minors, and he's already in AAA he's headed to AAA tonight
right now.
But we'll see what he can do in Kansas City. That's a tough one, Ralph, because again, like they deemed their success in the draft with pitching, so they went with with Hagen. And I mean, I still think that was. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's a solid selection. I personally, I know I was fighting for Weatherholt at that time, going into that 5th pick, because I was trying to solidify either second base or third base with Weatherholt. But yeah, Cag is definitely right there. I mean, the conversation was Weatherholt, Jack, and Hagen Smith, and they went with the pitcher because that's where they have success. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Hopefully this draft we can land a position player, because ultimately they need to start landing position players out of the draft and developing them. So besides our commenters, I'm going to shout out Ryan Pulse for having a mediocre draft. I wasn't here last year.
That's what you get trying to shoot shots, trying to have my GM catch strays. Goofy. What a goofy.
Man. I'm pretty skeptical on that draft, but at the end of the day, I still absolutely love the fact that they landed Ben Johnson, and we'll see what Ben can do. He's going to have more. I think he's going to have more playmakers than what he had in Detroit, accessible with a higher potential quarterback with Caleb and Goff. But ultimately, it's going to come down to how they're going to develop that line and what they're going to add to it under the rookie contract of Caleb. So we're going to see. We saw the schedule come out, Jay. Monday Night Football Week 1 versus Minnesota. Me and you are going to be going. Me and you are going to be out of our mind.
I try to go to the game.
Rest in peace, Caleb.
Yeah, we're gonna make Caleb put his phone in a bowl of rice water.
It's the debut of JJ.
Boy.
It's the debut of JJ McCarthy, Week 1 at Soldier Field.
He's gonna meet Montez Sweat in the worst way possible.
Oh man. Well, I think that does it for me with shout outs.
I just want to say you should be ashamed of yourself to use your last words to give my GM strays. You're going to pay for that in a later period.
You know, it is what it is. I'm very, bro, think about this. And this is the crazy part, is the highest pick for offensive line, or not awesome, for the defensive line. He's had the same amount of defensive end picks as punters in the later rounds.
I don't care.
Oh, man. It is what it is, man. He waited to draft after, Darnold Wright going in the first round, which I liked. But then he waited until this draft late in the, because he made that trade back. So later on in the third round to get Ozzie Trapillo. It is what it is, Jay. It is what it is. I can only, be so skeptical and just hope for better drafts to come. But again, we're going to see. I can be talking shit right now because at the end of the day, it's going to be up to Ben Johnson as the head coach to get the most out of the talent that was provided to him. So, and you can always scheme the offense to cover some flaws like at Johnson at left tackle, or if it's going to be Ozzie start making his debut Week 1 at left tackle. You can, I at least am confident enough, Jay, to feel comfortable with Ben Johnson scheming, duos on the outside to help cover up those flaws more than what Waldron would have done, because Waldron always left. Think about this. Waldron, right? We drafted, what's the kid from Yale? Karan Amagaji, who missed all of the preseason due to injury and got limited pads throughout the season, and then waited to start him at left tackle Monday night at Minnesota, left him on an island, and never in that game had any coverage on the outside for him. I believe Ben Johnson, with his proven ability of being the playmaker of 3 straight seasons with the top 5 offense in points and scoring, to scheme some of the flaws of our offense and to have success with the playmakers and Caleb. So that's where I'm going to leave this conversation, Jay. Ultimately, at the end of the night, we got swept by the Cubs. We are hoping for the best to come.
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay, for being here with me tonight. Keep me sane. And thank you to Joe, Ralph, and others in the chat, and for our viewers for watching the Blackout Show. We will see you next week. From Gonzo, from Jay, like, subscribe, follow, and tune in for next week's show. Thank you for watching the Blackout.